Okay, without further ado, and my apologies for the delay, I think we're ready to start. Let's stand and give a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mike's live and okay. Then I will call to order this meeting of the Mount Airy Planning Commission, July 28, 2014. The minutes were sent out in advance. Everybody get a chance to look them over? Yep. Anything else that anyone caught that you think needs to be changed? Lisa, we want to compliment you on how quickly you're turning these around. It's great. It's great.
Thank you.
All right, then I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes as read. Well, as submitted, as shared. Is there an approval?
I approve.
All right.
Motion to make
Is there a second to that motion?
second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor, let know by saying aye.
Aye.
Minutes approved. There you go. And Lisa was so sure that we would do that. She's already given me a copy to sign. All right, great. That's super.
Absolutely.
All right, audience members, I would call your attention to our agenda for this evening. And if there are citizen comments from the audience on any other items that aren't listed on the agenda, now is the time for that. We'd ask you to come up to the podium, introduce yourself and your residential address, and share with us whatever's on your mind.
Evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm Pete Bellis. I reside at 401 Longbow Road in Mount Airy, and I'm proud to say that. I'm here tonight with a small agenda that I wanted to share with everyone. Last planning and zoning meeting, unfortunately, I didn't get to, and I don't get to many, but I do watch them on TV. And as I was watching the planning and zoning meeting last month, something occurred to me. And at the end of the meeting, I was really kind of upset. And the more I thought about it, I said, Pete, you got to come downtown and you got to talk to the Planning and Zoning Commission this time. So I have a pass out that I want to pass around. And if each of you all would take one of these, I would appreciate it. At the end of the meeting last month, we talked about concerns that the town had and different priorities that the town had. And unfortunately, one of the things that I didn't hear from was the concern about the Flatiron building. And when we stated the concerns of our town, the Flatiron building wasn't mentioned. Not only wasn't it mentioned, but some folks said or contributed that they don't hear anything about the Flatiron building. Well, let me share with everyone, it depends on which group of citizens you're associated with. If you are in a certain group, you don't hear about the Flatiron building. In my group and circle of friends, I hear about the Flatiron building. The Flatiron building is a historic building in our town. And in July of last year, I spoke to the council about the Flatiron building. I want to introduce everybody to the Flatiron building again. There it is on that picture behind Chairman Bill Butts' head. And the reason why I'm here tonight is to say my group of friends, people that I know, are talking about the Flatiron building as a concern, and they're talking about the Harrison Leisure property as a concern, and some other things not as much. I'm also here because I know that councilmen, mayor, councilman Strong have been working on this. And I know we have the financial, how shall I say, commission that we're working on. and we have the community commission we're working on. But tonight, what I passed around was part of the Flatiron Building, and you all got to feel it. And I just wanted you to be aware of that there are people in our town that are vitally concerned about the Flatiron Building, vitally. As a matter of fact, it may move up further than any other problem that the town has. Either traffic problems, building problems, financial problems, whatever. So I'm here on behalf of the Flatiron Building tonight to share that with the Planning and Zoning Commission. I thank you very much for your time.
Pete, question.
Yes, Bill.
Thank you for coming forward and sharing that with us. Could you go into a little bit more detail about the extent of your concern and what your preference and those of the constituency you represent, what your preference would be for change?
As I see the Flatiron Building from my aspect, and I've said this before, I'm not really married to the building. I am married to the front of the building, the facade of the building, the front facial facade. I think, though, that the members of the Mount Airy Historical Society would really like to see the building to be repaired and saved the way it stands as we speak. But I also think that there's opportunities for other use of this building. The problem comes in, and I hear about Center Street, that's an issue. I hear about Veterans Lane as an issue. The next street up escapes me the name of that street, I'm sorry, Lookout Avenue? Cross Street, right.
Cross Street.
Cross and Lookout. Those streets concern me, and the volume of traffic going up and down Park Avenue. So I don't really have an answer. I don't really have an answer to your question, Bill.
Okay.
I think my answer and my concern at this point is that our building here is in disrepair, and every day it's not getting any better, as you can see by the facade. And that's what I'm kind of looking at. I understand in 1951, they wanted to take that building down, widen the road, widen the street. But this is the historic building in our town. The railroad building is owned by a private individual, so not really a lot we can do about the railroad building. The other building that escaped the fire in 1903, Mr. Hughes' store, is already being used for something, so now we have our Flatiron Building. And I think from my perspective that without the Flatiron Building in Mount Airy, it just wouldn't be Mount Airy. It just wouldn't be. And perhaps maybe the answer is to close off Park Avenue. I mean, I'm over there by the Flatiron Building some days, and cars are coming down Park Avenue, and even with all the signage that we have, people make left-hand turns and go up South Main Street. It's incredible to me. And I even holler at people, and they still make turns. So I don't have an answer to that. But I think, as a citizen of the town, I want to see this building to be saved in some way, shape, or form. I don't want it to just deteriorate. And that's the part that I want to bring forward. And I just don't want the citizens of our town, even though that building stands there, people ask me all the time, where is the museum and where is the Flatiron Building? The people who remember the building as a prior building, most of those people are going to the home with myself, okay? We'll only remember it as the Flatiron Building. So, I'm sorry, the Flatiron Building, yes. So that's my concern, Bill. And I appreciate you all's time tonight. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
So,
Comments?
yeah, Pete, just by way of background, on the pie-shaped building, as Oscar tells us.
As Oscar tells us.
As Oscar tells us what it's called. We haven't forgotten, we appreciate the fact that you're pushing the issue and continue to push and advocate for the issue. Speaking for myself, not for the council.
Sure.
But I'll ask the mayor to help out here. We've got a number of, a confluence of things are happening in the next few months. The master plan is going to get discussed and voted on, which kind of sets our vision for the next 10 years. In addition to that, there are now a couple real critical needs that are starting to boil up. If we annex Harrison this year, maybe investments, required for that, if we, ever do annex that. Center Street, we'd like to get through for economic development. Now, Twin Ridge, 27, Twin Arch, the traffic problems there are becoming very, very critical. The Flatiron, the pie-shaped building, a community center, all of those issues. So we're still working, not as fast as we should be, but we're still working on this, for lack of a better term, a financial strategic plan, trying to determine how to take all of these needs with the available amount of money that we have in reserves and/or in capital expenses, put that together in a form where the council, the mayor, the community can look at and say, okay, here are our priorities from a financial perspective. Where does the community want to invest? And it could be the community decides, okay, well, Center Street takes priority, let's do that. I'm not advocating for that position, I'm just saying that's an example. It could be that, well, there's enough of momentum behind a community center and preserving the Flatiron building that, we preserve the facade, make it larger. But that issue is being worked from a financial perspective. It's a lot more difficult than I had imagined because we're looking at the finances in a way that maybe we haven't looked at them before. By the same token, and I'll ask the mayor to help out on this, the mayor puts together a budget that doesn't raise taxes, right, and maintains our spending levels so the infrastructure and stuff stays sound. So we're working on it. We're not getting there as fast as we can, but I think in the next few months, when we have something to look at that says, here's the money we have, here are the needs that we have, now as a community, let's determine where we make the investment, and certainly your advocacy and the folks you represent for the Flatiron building is critical to that input. Long-winded answer, but it's being addressed.
Can I just ask you a question? What's the council's latest thoughts on the Flatiron building? Is it restore, rebuild, demolish, rebuild? Is there a thought, a shift either way, or is it still?
I'll speak for myself, and
is
then
everything up in the air still?
Right, I'll speak for myself, and then there's other councilmen and the mayor here as well. I don't know how, from my perspective, I do not know how to make a decision without knowledge of the finances, because we don't want to do anything to put the town finances at risk. So one plan is just rebuild it as is. Another plan is, we make something much larger. Any decision we make has significant financial impact, and until we can figure out how to prioritize these needs, I don't know how to make a
I was just
decision.
wondering if the council was kind of leaning one way or another.
I don't believe the council is leaning one way or another. Yeah, go ahead, or Bob.
There is 5 or 6 options. The first one being repair as is, repair the building as is. And these numbers may be off, but I had in my mind that was about $600,000, and you get nothing more. In fact, you lose space inside, because then you have to bring the building up to code.
Has to be updated,
There was
right.
option number 2.
Yeah.
Okay, that's option number 1, is just repair as is, and it's seemed to me it was about $500,000, $600,000.
That's
The $1
right.
million price tag rebuilds the building as it, same footprint now, same thing, you lose lots of space inside because you have to bring it up to code. And then there were varying degrees of making the building larger as it encroaches into Park Avenue, and
3.2.
3.2 million was the big number, okay, which would be 6,000 square feet, I think, on that floor, three-story building, shops.
Is that tearing it down and rebuilding?
That's tearing it down.
To look like the old Flatiron, the current Flatiron building?
You'll see that facade was what, I think everybody has insisted on that facade.
Okay.
The building will change. It will come out into Park Avenue and be bumped back a little bit from Main Street so that you could have some parking down there, parking in front of it. So there's
And then
wide.
there was a middle range too.
Yeah, there's a couple in the middle that were, 1.6 million, and then 2 point something million, and then the big one was 3.2 million. And the problem is we really haven't discussed it at the council level. I think Barney is the one that was pursuing getting engineering and the engineers to look at it and see if it would be even safe to rebuild it as is. So, and Pete probably knows way more about that than I do.
Well, so I take that, I'm going to walk away from that saying the council is very cognizant of the Flatiron building, and it's not a forgotten thing to just fall to the ground. It will do something.
If it's not brought up regularly, it can get lost. And I think that's what Pete's trying to do.
Let's be sure that people are aware, especially those that may be watching on television. There's a link on the town website, is there not?
That will list the 6 options.
Okay.
that are available.
So if you go to the town website, there will be an opportunity there for you to go and to see those various scenarios.
That's correct.
And it would be well for as many people as possible to do that.
That is correct, you can do that. I think, and I do hear the financial plan, and I'm all for financial plans and sound financial footing. And I do know that Carroll County just floated a bond, and the interest that Carroll County is going to pay me is 2.4% on this bond. A concern that I have about financially continuing down the road, where's the town going with special projects? I'm not one that wants to say there's going to be a recession, but I read a lot of things that people are saying, our government is saying, that interest rates are going to go up, which will increase borrowing, the amount of money that the town has to pay for the bonds. And I, for one, would be not opposed to the town securing financing through a Carroll County bond to provide for these things that are pressing for our town. There are some things that I just feel need to be completed. I know everybody has a wish list. I understand that. I do understand it. Nobody knows that more than me about a wish list. And it would be great to say that we can do everything, that we could do, bring the caboose in, bring the community center in, bring the Flatiron building in, but realistically, we need a lot of foresight because we don't want to overburden the debt for the people who come after me. But I must say this, doesn't seem the way the country is.
Yeah, I think we have a I think we have a tendency to be a bit more fiscally conservative.
I think we're right, and well, we should. Anyway, I appreciate you all's time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming and
Thanks.
speaking to that.
I'll just add 2 cents. I'm Dave Pyatt, 705 Park Avenue. If you look at that picture behind Bill, the upper left window, I sat behind that window for council meetings, I guess, from 1988 until the late 90s, give or take. And I didn't know it was called the Flatiron Building until, I guess, around 2000. It was just the town hall. But this table is designed the way it is to fit inside that complex. I don't know how many
Interesting.
people know that.
Interesting.
This table is part of the history.
Cool.
I'm also in the Historical Society. I'm not as active as Pete, but what I sense is that there is a very strong commitment from the older folks in the towns to have something for the town hall Flatiron building. A very strong link to the past, if you will. But I also know, when I was on the Parks Board and I guess the liaison to the parks, I looked into a rec center somewhere in the 90s. There's not going to be, when you try to look at all the options, there's not going to be a good answer. And I think what Pete is saying is that you just have to make up your mind or make a conscious decision to include the Flatiron building and work around that theme. And I think it also cuts down on traffic from Park Avenue, which is becoming a bigger bugaboo. But at least it kills that. But I think you have to, you start doing all these options and you end up kind of flipping all over. I think if the council says, look, we have to stick with this site, you're not going to get a perfect community center. You're going to have to make some concessions on that. You're not going to get a perfect historical society. But I believe in some of the plans that Barney showed, I guess about a year ago, that showed that coming out, right out of that picture, you know, and it would come along that apron, no matter what, I think it was like $3-4 million. I think that would accomplish two things that would make the old folks feel comfortable, if that's the word, and it would really vitalize downtown. I mean, the downtown is sort of a ghost town these days. I mean, if you want to, you know, all those years I had to scoot across traffic are kind of gone. But I think it would really accomplish that. It would vitalize the downtown, keep the historical folks happy, and you might have some limitations as far as a community center. Yeah, you might have to, you know, you're going to have to make some serious concessions with people that want activities and maybe look at alternative sites. But I think that's the only way that this is going to work.
Good. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak and share anything with us? Suffice it to say, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for additional public feedback on these issues, and we're almost ready to talk about a process to hand over the master plan draft to council, so there'll be an opportunity there as well. But thanks, Pete, for sharing that with us. We appreciate it. We appreciate it. All right, then, if there are no other citizen comments, we'll move on to section 4 of our agenda tonight. We have a sign permit. Pivot Physical Therapy.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
This is thank you. This is the only commercial business signage that we have to consider this evening. Pivot has submitted a sign permit for the installation of a sign at their location in the Mount Airy Shopping Center, located at 431 East Ridgeville Boulevard, for Planning Commission to review and approve. The applicant is proposing to install a channel lettering style signage. The proposed signage measures 1.6 feet in height by 10 feet wide for a total of 16 square feet. And the store frontage is 17 linear feet. Staff does recommend approval of the sign with the design and materials proposed. And that is not the depiction. Oh, here we go. But, no, that's okay. I was reading right along. Again, that does not represent what we're approving tonight. So. It's okay. I know, it was engrossing, wasn't it? There we go.
All right, so Maryland Rehab's changing their name.
I don't want to make that assumption, but I believe that's what's happening.
Okay, but that is at least the location.
That is.
Right.
Okay.
So pretty cut and dry.
So we have an existing store owner and commercial concern that's seeking our approval to change their signage.
Their signage, yes.
Any questions from commission members? Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion? It's well within acceptable criteria.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the approval of the sign permit application with the design and building materials as proposed.
I'll second.
All right, motion made by Tony and seconded by Commissioner Everidge. All those in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, like sign. And it's unanimous. All right, very good.
Okay, the next two signage presentations are informational, and this is actually a really exciting, two projects that I'm really excited to present. This is not for commercial signage, but these are signs that are being incorporated into our town's streetscape on Main Street, as well as our park system. The first presentation is regarding MAMSA, and we have Mr. Dick Swanson and Ellie Bondi with us today. And Ellie has given me the honor of presenting this. And if you have any additional questions, they are here to participate. MAMSA is proposing the installation of a series of interpretive signs for placement on the south wall of the town hall. This project proposal represents several months of research and collaboration to achieve a long-standing vision to highlight the town's downtown businesses and events. The proposed interpretive sign series will include 3 separate signage components. Each sign will measure 36 inches wide by 48 inches high. 2 panel signs will be located on either end of the series and will portray the history of the town and a downtown business map. The downtown business map will be updated on an annual basis to reflect any changes. The middle sign will be constructed to function as a bulletin board cabinet and will advertise upcoming events. This component will change from time to time to reflect the upcoming events. The panels and bulletin board inserts will be of professional grade production and design. MAMSA will provide the information to be produced to the manufacturer. The specific positioning of the signage on the town hall's exterior wall has yet to be finalized. However, the thought is that the signage will be situated closer to the street rather than centered along the building elevation. Once installed, the panels will likely be in close proximity to one another and will function more as one component than individual signage. The sign frames are constructed of aluminum, and there is a choice of colors: green, gray, brown, and charcoal. MAMSA's preference of color is charcoal so that it will complement the newly installed clock on the side of Town Hall. Staff will be working in conjunction with MAMSA to coordinate the placement of the signage on the Town Hall. This project is being brought forward to the Planning Commission to announce an initiative by our Main Street organization. MAMSA and town staff look forward to your comments on this exciting project. And the sign is going to look a lot more natural than our attempt to Photoshop. It will not be sticking out from the wall 3D. It'll be
It's a
flush
strange
against.
perspective.
There's bushes here too.
The shrubbery, I like the shrubbery.
We are not graphic designers. We do the best we can.
So these signs will be on the wall.
These signs are going to be flat up against the wall.
That was my question when I saw this
That's
earlier.
I know.
Right.
I was like,
It was.
Tony, they're gonna
E for
they're gonna
effort,
fold the
okay?
shrubbery again.
I think this is a great idea.
It's fabulous.
I really do.
And I think we should give a round of
Fabulous.
applause to Linda.
Excellent.
Working hard,
Excellent.
to bring this element to our
Excellent.
downtown. This is something that is, I know people are going to stop and gaze at, and it's just another communication device to our visitors and our residents. So, great
like
job.
it. Yep.
Is,
Yep.
Ellie, is there going to be illumination for it? Or was that considered or discussed?
That, I mean, we can,
That could even be added at another time.
it could be something from above, but we had not considered that.
Okay. Are there other sites or locations that may be down the road in terms of interpretive signage or, might be on your list of?
Yeah. We're working on the historical plaques on the exteriors of the
Okay.
buildings.
Because I almost see this as a series, as a marketing and promotional series in terms of the character and personality of the town. So there's some opportunity for design continuity that ties into websites, that ties into flyers and brochures, and yeah, great, super. Any comments or questions for Dick or for Ellie?
No, it's echoing
I like it.
echoing Tony's comments. Fabulous.
Yeah.
And it will
Wonderful.
be
Great idea.
installed, when do you
You know,
expect?
they didn't tell me how long it would take to manufacture and stuff. I mean, we have to provide, the one panel will be the history of the town.
Right.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna write that.
Oh, Ellie.
You know,
No,
it's
come
gotta
on.
be a collaboration with a whole lot of people to make sure that everybody is happy.
Right.
Because that one is one that could stand for
and thank you for all that you do.
Now, Mabs has been working on this for a while, have you not? Yeah.
Now, the whole idea of having a information board of what's coming up next in town, you know, a lot of people don't access the town website to see what's happening. And this is another way of, people are just walking around like, oh, gee, next week there's,
Catching people that are down here.
yeah.
That's right.
I think this is
Yep,
fantastic.
ties in nicely.
We
cool.
envision different shops being able to advertise activities that they're doing as well as music.
Super. Fabulous.
Cool.
Love it.
And the list of the shops, the map, would be updated annually. Like, if we do it, let's say September 1st, then every year on September 1st, whoever's business is in business would be on the map. And if anybody had changed, if you go out of business January 1st, you're still up there until the next September 1st.
Or we're just listing downtown businesses.
And this is just for the historic downtown area.
Will there be updates on the town website? Will there, you know, in terms of an ETA for, you know, when you anticipate it might be constructed?
Supply the information.
We'll be happy to post that.
Since we're encouraging people to tune into the town website and look at the Flatiron Building options, and maybe that's another opportunity.
From the company, they've done all the interpretive signs along the Zeno Canal and down
Yeah.
Williamsport, and I went
Yeah,
down and
yeah,
looked at their
yeah.
signage.
Good.
And I'll call her tomorrow and find out how long it's going to
Super.
Is that the address of the town website?
I don't know. I think it may be. That is the website address. All right, very good. Thank you, Mayor. Okay, excellent.
Thank you. Another exciting signage presentation that I bring to you this evening, and I just want to make sure that our illustrious beautification chair is not here before I begin. I am presenting
Nope.
this on behalf of our Beautification Commission, and specifically our chair, Mary Hushauer. The Beautification Commission contributes countless volunteer hours to develop landscaping and enhancement plans for our park systems, as well as tending to the maintenance of the same. Town staff is coming before the Planning Commission to officially present the town's first uniform signage program for our park system. This is just one of the many contributions of the Beautification Commission that reflect the town's pride and high standards when it comes to providing quality amenities for its citizens and patrons. The Beautification Commission has been working towards the implementation of a uniform sign program for the town's park system during the past year. Currently, there is no uniformity with design or material with regard to the town's park signage. In the case of East-West Park, signage simply does not exist to identify the entrance of the park or to welcome patrons. The proposed sign design is portrayed on the attached rendering of the staff report, but it's also on the overhead for your viewing pleasure. As shown, each sign will be constructed as a monument-style sign, utilizing stone for the base and columns. The insert will be of professional-grade materials, and productions will reflect the design shown. Although the sizes of each sign will vary for each park, the architectural features of the signage will be consistent. The Beautification Commission will determine the appropriate sign size to ensure proper identification, while ensuring that the sign will not overwhelm the unique characteristics for each of our parks. Beyond the immense aesthetic value these signs will provide, the physical address for our parks will be included on the sign. This will help as far as identification of each park for ease of location, and will aid park patrons in the event of an emergency and the need to call for emergency response services. We are excited to unveil this initiative that will become part of the town's standard for vision and continuity. Staff will be supporting the Beautification Commission with the application of any required permits and the placement of the signage if requested. Watkins Park will be the first park to benefit from this initiative, and we are pleased to announce that it will be installed shortly. We thank the Beautification Commission for their time and expertise on this initiative. And this represents the standard of signage, even in commercial business signage that we try to achieve. So the Beautification Commission absolutely got it spot on. And their talents and their efforts are simply outstanding on this project. So this will be your new uniform park signage.
Like it.
I mean, the look, the feel, the design elements, so appropriate.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know, this is professionally rendered to the same extent that, you know, some of our most impressive housing developments in neighborhoods in town, you know, have an entrance sign. This does the same kind of thing for our parks. It's very appropriate.
And one of the, this was introduced initially at our joint commissions session. And there was actually a comment at that time, I believe, I'm recalling this correctly, to add the addresses. So based on feedback,
Yeah, that's cool.
thank you, okay, I was hoping I was recalling that. I'm getting
Good.
older, so, but what a great element. That's something that we never really consider, is that our parks don't have that address. So good stuff.
Heather, what
Yes.
is this part made out of, the walking?
It is,
Just-
there is a name for it, and I do apologize that I don't have that specific name. It's almost, it's a
Composite?
composite board, yes, and it's not wood, it's like a wood composite. I don't, but it'll be professionally done.
Okay.
In the example of Watkins Park, does anyone know exactly where the sign will be located? Will it be in place of the current sign?
I believe
as far
that
as
is
you know?
where it's gonna be located.
I think for the entire duration of the time that we've lived in Mount Airy, about 11 years, I've looked at that Watkins sign because almost every morning we begin our day by walking down there, and you're missing letters. In some of the the Watkins Park letters are missing,
Right.
but the white is painted in anyway on the background of it. So this is just great. Mayor?
Yeah, Pat Rockenberg, Mayor. Just one small suggestion, because we went through this when we were looking at the entry monument. They may want to reconsider if they need the zip code. We tried to get it down to last, and I went just to look at our renderings. We have Mount Airy, Maryland. So it's
No
just,
zip code, okay.
it's a suggestion.
Okay.
Because this is
I
for
will forward that.
informational purposes. It doesn't require formal approval from the planning commission. However, planning commission is frequently tasked with looking at site plans and signage, and they do have a wealth of advice, and one of the advices a former planning commissioner would be to consider if they need the zip code.
Okay,
And actually, on that note, as I looked at this,
yes.
I actually found Mount Airy, Maryland redundant because it's on the town logo. I just thought 615 Center Street centered would actually look nicer.
Okay, so perhaps for additional
Just-
signs.
that's
to-
what hit me. I saw
Okay,
it, Mount
I
Airy,
will
Maryland,
definitely
twice.
forward that.
Can you see it?
I can.
The glasses.
You need to have there, I don't know,
I mean, just,
I'm not sure, but we did start a movement, and I'm not sure exactly what happened, Dave, you might have been liaison at that time, where we were putting the address, and we discussed the Mount Airy, and, you know, a lot of people in an emergency don't know where they are. You have, baseball teams there and all that kind of stuff, and these people don't have a clue where they are.
Just zip code, they're not mailing a letter to us.
Right. So I would leave the Mount Airy there.
Comment?
Just real quick, the signs were presented at Parks and Recs last week, whenever, and it's a polyurethane sign.
Thank you, Michelle.
All right, excellent.
Looking at that,
Is that a composite?
very consistent with that.
Very, very consistent design, great, beautiful design.
Good.
Hey,
30 years.
Heather, could I ask, the specs that are used to build the sign, I don't want to lose another potential Eagle Scout project. So, I mean, because we've got Eagle Scouts, we got a bunch of Eagle Scouts that are coming up through, at least the troop that I'm associated with. And it might be some of the parks that don't have signs, that might be a potential Eagle Scout project. But they would want to, of course, conform to the specifications. So however they spec out the brickwork and stuff, we can preserve that just in case I get an Eagle Scout candidate coming along and wants to build a sign. Hey,
Okay.
here's
Great
the
idea.
specifications. So.
That's something, and I will forward on to our beautification chair and let her know that that opportunity may exist.
Cool.
For this sign, I do know that the contract is on.
It's taken. Yeah,
It
that's
is,
okay.
yes. But you have far more other parks that they can possibly contribute to. But I will forward those comments
Okay. All right. Ready to move on? Then we're to section 5, our county planners. And first off, welcome back, Andrea.
It's been a while. Hi. And Andrea, I was gonna put a picture of the newest
Yeah.
member, but I didn't. I
Okay.
restrained myself.
You don't have to.
Okay, tell us about the newest member of your household.
He is 3 months, and he was in the hospital for a little while because he had a hard time gaining weight. So now he's eating a lot and gaining weight.
And what's his name?
Jacob,
Jacob.
and he is very sweet, and he likes to smile and laugh. So,
Just like his mother.
yeah, he gets it from me. I do have some things to update you on, and first thing, the Water and Sewer Master Plan. As you know, that's my baby that I've been following for the past 4 years. While I was out on June 3rd, we did get comments back from the state. They approved our plan in part, denied it in part, and modified it in part. I'm not really that surprised that something like this came back, but I'm happy to say none of it had anything to do with Mount Airy. So that's exciting. But we are, I took the letter that MDE gave to us, broke it down by municipality, so I know that there really wasn't anything that was attributed to Mount Airy, and then kind of how we can address all the other comments. Some of the modifications that they had were on our table 20 and 32, which is our water and wastewater tables for future demand. They kind of put in these numbers, so we're kind of working with them to find out what their methodology was, because it's definitely different than what we've been using. With that being said, it's still at the staff level right now. We're trying to figure out what to do with these comments, kind of kicking it back and forth. So I can update you probably next month as to what we decide to do about that.
Can I ask you about the water numbers? So the water and sewer plan you put forth had X amount of water being available. Did MDE increase that or decrease that?
For when they did,
For supply, yeah.
for the towns that they did comment on?
Yeah.
Just as an example, Hampstead Water, there was some appropriation questions as to a couple of the wells that we were using in our numbers. So back in 2010, we provided an amendment to our water and sewer master plan, and that had in there a particular number that they approved back then. They kind of just stuck that number in there. So it doesn't really mean anything to now. It goes back to 2010, and that decreased what we thought that we had. If that makes sense. I'm sorry if that doesn't
So
make sense.
well, the reason why I ask is I'm trying to see if they're decreasing other municipalities' water allocation.
It was
I want to
only,
make sure they don't, again, come after us.
no. The only reason why they decreased that is previously they had a town manager who provided me with this information about these wells and how much they were originally permitted for.
Okay.
They're not permitted for those numbers. So therefore, when I had their base number, I was providing them with a whole lot more water than they are currently permitted for. So this is by literally on the books what is permitted today. That's
So
why.
you're saying they had the wrong number?
Yes.
Okay.
But where this number was that they generated from,
Who knows where it came from, right?
yeah.
And of course, they reviewed our number and they're leaving us
They're-
alone.
You are not impacted by any of this.
Okay, Bob, we don't want them yanking more water.
No, there is nothing that had anything to do
Okay.
with Mount Airy. So I was really excited about that because you guys are my town. So, in addition to that, we put forth the priority letter. We sent it to the Board of County Commissioners for them to sign it, to send it out. And the only thing that Mount Airy was in there for was just as a reminder, if you will, that Maryland 27 at Twin Arch Road, just north of Watersville Road, is part of our highways need inventory, and that's just a long-range priority project. So that's just to make sure that you guys knew that that was still in our letter, that it's for FY 2015 to 2020. So
But you just said 27.
it's the highways need inventory says that it's Twin Arch Road to just north of Watersville Road.
Oh, the waters, okay.
What is that for traffic issues there now?
Yeah, it says this project listed
Yes, it is.
them are critical to maintaining traffic safety and flow and will contribute to high quality of life and economic development opportunities in the designated growth areas of Carroll County.
And they didn't include any potential impacts from Harris and Lashir, right? Because that's just not on the table right now.
No.
Okay.
These were kind of like the top 8 of our wish list, so that wouldn't be on there. And not to my knowledge at all. And there are a few like trails and things like that, but nothing for Mount Airy. Just wanted to let you know also with our Carroll County Master Plan, the final chapter, the land use chapter, is going to be given to the Planning Commission on Wednesday night. The full draft will be going to the Planning Commission and the Board of Commissioners on August 6th, and going to ask to start the 60-day review process in the end of August. That's the trajectory we're on now.
Can you, any comment, updates on the rain tax?
I will put that
Stormwater
on.
management rain tax?
I will ask them.
Rain this afternoon, so you get
Yeah. Andrea,
Martin O'Malley, the state of Maryland.
Andrea,
sending you
a
bill.
very general question, since we're coming out of our update cycle for this master plan and we're about to present it to town council, we're already primed to be thinking down the road. And it makes us cognizant of perhaps regional influences. And so I would ask this question of you representing Carroll County, and we're going to be asking it of Frederick County as well, and that's to foster a greater dialogue with the planning groups, the professionals, and the commissions in both counties to share with us what you see and what trends you see, what population shifts, what highway infrastructure impacts, what development trends, any of those kinds of things that may potentially affect us, just as a context for our planning use, and just to keep that dialogue open, because it's been very, very useful to rethink where we are now as a town from a planning standpoint, what we ought to be looking at going forward. The same is very, very true in terms of our county context. So,
I will make sure that is
All right,
known
great.
to keep the dialogue open.
Great.
And everything like that. Lastly, I say this at every meeting that I'm in. Just want to remind you of my Energy Saver Loan Program. We are getting recognition from the Department of Energy as being one of the only places that still has their stimulus money being used for a revolving loan for their citizens, which is really exciting. So we've loaned out, or I've loaned out a little over $200,000 at this rate. So if anyone's interested in doing energy efficiency projects on their home, we did have rain today. If you realize that you needed new windows or something, let me know. And it's a maximum of $15,000 at 2.5% interest. Yes, only Carroll County residents, and it's only for residential use, not commercial.
okay.
Anything else?
Anything else for Andrea?
All right.
All right, thank you. Give our best to Jacob. Okay. All right. Frederick County's up next, but Tim is on vacation. so-
Tim is on vacation. In front of you is a smaller version of the pipeline development projects. And what Tim has done, or what Tim has provided us with, is actually broken down into approval stages. If you look at the legend, everything in the goldenrod color, if you will, is approved. And then there's some pending approval. What I would really like for the commission to do, I don't know if anybody wants to have the big version, or crowd around it, or what I would really like to do is have us study this map and formulate questions or clarifications that we may have, and compile those and send those to Tim. With regard to this development, we've basically been receiving information. One thing that I've asked of him wasn't able to prepare for this meeting or this report is the phasing and the timing of the development. There's over 10,000 dwelling units represented, if not more, on that map. And some are, you know, within close proximity, some are not, but it's quite impressive.
So just, are all of the yellow, the, on the approved, or
Yes.
on this list? And then and that's about the 10,000 that's been approved?
No, altogether there's, well, it's like 8,900
I guess I'm trying to,
that are about approved.
the beige with the dots around it, community growth area?
Right, that's the municipalities.
Okay.
So what we need to identify or concentrate on are the areas in yellow. And there are some questions about the areas in yellow, because some of the things, or some of the areas that are noted as being approved, there might not be an actual approval. So I have some clarifications as well.
Now, my main,
Yeah, I have a question. If it says 10, if there's hearing dates, if they were already approved, would there be hearing dates?
And this is what we need to pull in from Tim. Frederick County's processes aren't necessarily similar to ours.
Ah, right.
So that's what we need to reach out and ask.
you know, my main concern with this whole thing when Tim was here last presenting this was they're really not studying the impact of I-70.
Right.
And to me, that's
one
pretty
thing-
negligent in Frederick County.
Right. One thing I do want to add.
Or even the connector roads.
Tim is actually coordinating to have the traffic engineer that reviews these projects.
I remember he spoke about the improvements to 75 and all
Right.
those feeder roads, but
We're going to have a
dumping traffic onto
representative.
70 and it's okay, our job is done, to me is just
And-
unacceptable.
We're going to have that person, that individual, or that individual representing Frederick County.
Well, given the number of people who live locally and north of us who come down 27 and work and use 70 to get to work, the impact on just their commute alone, much less all of the street and road infrastructure, is going to be significant over the next 10 years.
I'm not a traffic engineer, but I would,
I mean, how many homes are we talking about going into this?
I'm sorry.
How many homes are we talking about?
10,000.
10,000
10,000
Just
homes?
the yellow.
in just the yellow at this time, yes.
That's 25,000 people.
To put that in perspective, Mount Airy has about 3,000 homes. That's 3 times the size of Mount Airy.
Right, so-
Within how many miles of our border? 2, 3?
It ranges from 2 to 5 miles.
2 to 5 miles. It's 3 new Mount Airies within 2 to 5 miles.
Right, I remember last time Tim was here, I asked him the question, Tim, when they do the traffic planning, do they include the interstates? And right, Tim's
Right, we
was-
had that discussion.
Well, no, we don't count the interstates.
Because it's a
So-
state highway.
Yep.
Right,
So we're done.
and it's not just 70, it's 270, so.
Well,
normally when
and
you do-
270 was the other thing too.
Right.
Roxanne, I remember you talked about, what was the average commute time to,
Oh, from here to Demat, I mean, from here down to where you get to 270, 25, 30 minutes. And if you get behind the buses, you're 45 minutes
Yeah.
on 27. But there is nothing that you can do on 27 through Damascus.
Nope.
You'd be taking houses if you try to make 27 wider. So they're gonna have to widen the other road because people aren't gonna be able to go down 27.
but if you take that to the logical end, if 27 is impacted where it's unacceptable to use, and you're going to go 70 to 70 with the additional population,
You
good
can't
luck
go
getting down to
270.
DC in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
You can't.
It's gonna go down
Down around through, I don't know.
Yeah.
80s.
I mean
This is-
people coming
it's
out of
irres-
here.
This is irresponsible. From the Frederick, I'll say it publicly, from the Frederick County Commissioner perspective, this is
unacceptable.
irresponsible.
It's
When
to me, it's
But the
unacceptable.
developers are happy.
When APFO requirements are frozen and others are set aside, yeah, it's irresponsible.
I didn't mean to lay that on Tim last time he came to speak,
Well, right,
but
and we do need to be, he's our
Right.
messenger and,
Yep.
but he's only doing,
He's the messenger.
so,
But we shoot him anyway, no.
that's, no, that's not how
I'm only
that
kidding, I'm
goes.
only kidding.
Right, my question to Tim, of course, would be, where do they believe the employment campuses are? Or the employment centers are for these 10,000 homes? And how do they expect folks to get there? And they need to include the major arteries, which is 70 and 270, which, because as Roxanne said, you can't do anything with 27.
No.
This is
Is it-
beyond, this,
Understand one other thing too, these people just stood for election. They were, for all practical purposes, were elected, they'll be, you know, they were primary and they won. So,
well, this is what happens when folks don't come out and vote.
that's exactly right.
Well, at least there's a November election.
But, I mean, the folks in Frederick County, this is just irresponsible.
Well,
You all can draft a letter, previous planning commission draft a letter. I went to testify, but it was so packed, I couldn't get to it.
it,
I will testify again, yes.
all of these hearings have been.
There is a huge citizen movement there, it's substantial and,
Against this?
Yeah,
yes.
they just don't listen to them.
Yeah, Blaine Young and the county commissioners aren't listening. They don't care. They're listening to the developers. That's pretty clear.
Heather, I have a question for you. On this list, there's a number of things crossed out. What does that mean?
That's a question of mine. I got this
Okay.
late this morning.
Okay.
And that is one of my questions,
Put it
so.
on Revere Township.
All right, and I remember on, we had a rezoning map a while back when we were doing the master plan.
It was like a side-by-side.
Yeah, and there was quite a bit of area around the border of the town of Mount Airy, north of 70, that I don't see anything shown on here. And I guess my fear is,
There's even more.
yeah, and we don't find out about it until it's 1 week before the hearing.
Right.
I'll
I-
put those other maps.
Yeah, I don't know what we can do about that, but it would be good, I think it would be nice to know if there was something coming up before the hearing is scheduled.
Right. And that's why, these are some of the questions. And there are, I do have a contact or so with the citizens movement, and they keep me informed as to what's going on, just for informational purposes.
Heather,
So, yes,
the map with the color coding and cross-hatching and so forth,
yes.
you know, it at least gives us a visual representation of size and concentration. Is it possible for Tim to annotate this map and break out, for example, approximate housing totals
Well, and
for
they're
approved
actually,
and for pending?
they're on there, they're.
Are they?
You
and-
just have to read it.
Yeah, they're little on your map, and I apologize.
Oh,
And-
okay.
And I
Oh, I
will-
see them. I see them, yeah.
1,200.
Well, what I was hoping for was a collective total for approved and for pending.
And we will have
Okay.
we can do a spreadsheet for you.
So
or-
we
or
can
take,
see where it stands
right.
now and,
Well, and the other thing is,
How it
we also
increases.
wanted a target date of when, at least a educated guess as to when construction would begin.
okay,
You know, starting for the approved developments. But
okay.
there is,
Okay? Anything else then on the status report of Frederick Development? Shall we move on to unfinished business? And part of what we wanted to do here was updates on our subcommittee reports and our new zoning classifications that are being worked on and drafted.
and I will go. I'm gonna tag team this with Judy. Judy, if I
Okay?
go rogue, then stop me.
Go
We're
for
on
it.
the OPE subcommittee group. We met on July 9th. And we reviewed the existing draft ordinance. We had some discussions. We're defining, the definition of wholesale,
Okay.
deliveries. One of the things that we concentrated on were the uses and the potential traffic generation specific to freight trip generation. So I'm going to work with the town's traffic consultant to get a industry standard as to how to define a possible threshold so that if we have a wholesale manufacturer, it's limited, or wholesale distributor, I guess that's not manufacturer, distributor, so that we're cognizant of that with the traffic generation. One of the discussions we have, we reacted to the idea of a distributor overall. Maybe we don't want it to function like that. One thing that we have to be mindful of is there are small and local distribution centers. Right next to us is Superfoods. They're a distributor for Natural Zing. So right here on Main Street, we have a distributor, and it's a little impact. So those are the things that, through, getting our initial reactions and our fears, we can sort of become informed and make educated, recommendations. So that is where we got. We are going to meet on August 4th, and we're going to present our homework assignments, and we're going to continue traveling down our review road, and we hope to bring a draft for comment to the Planning Commission on August 25th. August is going to be a busy month.
Okay. But for the benefit of the audience, let me back up just a minute. Rather than further delay the completion of the draft of the master plan, we went ahead and included in that draft the recommendation that there were at least 2 additional zoning districts that we felt the town in its current stage of development and maturity had need of. One was an office park employment zone. A second was a mixed-use zone, primarily for downtown area and so forth. A third need we felt was a critical need for a corridor study, Highway 27 corridor study. That would be a baseline and a frame for a lot of consideration for that whole commercial corridor and our appropriate planning and anticipation of what would be involved. We alluded to both of those in the master plan update, but we didn't take the time to go ahead and step through all of the development and all of the drafting. That's what we're pushing to complete now as quickly as possible. So we have parceled that out in subcommittees, and we have virtually all the members of the Planning and Zoning Commission on one or the other or both, okay, of that. And so these are updates from those subcommittees as to where we stand.
I'm sorry, I should have let you.
No, that's all right. I didn't realize the need for it, and that's the essential context of what we're trying to do here. So the first, the OPE, irrespective of where the location may be, we need to understand, so what we want to include in that, are there considerations pertinent to, say, our downtown area that we want to use in the consideration of it, those kinds of things.
One other thing that I'll mention with the OPE is the design elements and how the proposed language will guide the specific design, whether it be a architectural covenants that will be required, whether there will be like an overall master plan. So design, function, and impact are what we're really focusing on. And a lot of that we're evaluating, like I said, those proposed uses right now. So. Was there anything else?
Nope.
Questions
I think that was
for
it.
Heather or the OPE group?
Heather, the talk about distribution, so you're trying to, one of the tricks, correct me if I'm wrong, one of the tricks is to distinguish between a small distributor and then something large like cold storage used to be, right?
Right, and,
So
how,
how do you-
how can we do that? Would it be, do we attribute that with size? Do we attribute that with like classification? We're there, when you put distribution center, I think where we're heading is that we need to put some parameters with
And I
that.
think in Twin Arch Business Park, I think we also have an antique car distributor, I think, right, Ken? I thought there was, there's a,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, okay.
Well,
That's
and that's when, you know, we don't just want to shut it out, you know, just basically when we envision like a big box distributions that are, you know, I think that's the first thing that comes to our mind, but that's when we think, okay, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's all big box. So we want to provide the opportunity, but we want to do so in such a manner that it's to really evaluate the impact.
And I think the toughest thing is there's only one area that is proposed zoning in the master plan, and that's the Harrison-LaShire. So trying to design, create the standards so that they could be used anywhere, but knowing that this is really the primary area that we're talking about.
Right, but now, and of course, that the Route 27 corridor study
Correct.
ties into that concept.
Absolutely, yes. So.
Okay.
I'll go because I
Ready
can
for
be
mixed
brief. Mixed-use development, I'm the chair of the subcommittee, and we have not yet been able to meet. So Heather and Tony and then Roxanne has joined our committee. We are hoping for the, not next week, but the following week, and then Lindy's on that too. But, so we're gonna pick a date, right? After this meeting.
Afterwards, okay.
Then we'll pick a date.
I have my life here.
And the main idea is to help facilitate Heather's schedule. Leslie
Yes,
and I,
we're gonna help
try
facilitate
to
Heather's
meet during the
schedule.
day. We're gonna try to meet during the day as opposed to meeting at night.
Yeah, so we have some
Just- 'cause
flexibility.
I know Heather likes to spend all of her time of her whole life
I
here at this
do.
building.
I do.
But we're gonna fight that trend and try to meet during the day.
So we have a meeting set up right after this meeting to schedule our meeting.
So,
In 50 words or less, what's the opportunity of a mixed-use development district for our town? What would it provide us that we don't already have?
It would be, and I might give this over to Heather because she's researched it a lot, but it would be a mixture between living and work within the same area. Say, I mean, one of the areas we're looking at is the Beck property on the east side of 27. So you have courtyards and maybe smaller living spaces on the top, businesses on the bottom, very specific limitations on parking and where things can be, walking paths, maybe cycling paths, maybe it would connect in with Rails to Trails or the Carroll County trail that's eventually going to happen or is partially happening. We would also really, really hope if it was on the east side of 27 that there'd be some kind of connection, tunnel or bridge that the developer would contribute to or pay for. Anyway, that type of thing. It would really encourage the walking, live where you eat where you shop, whatever, idea. But it would be close enough to town that it's sort of incorporated in, trying to keep it incorporated into
we kind of
downtown.
have a flavor of the downtown zone. We have
Yeah.
businesses and residents, but
Yeah.
increased walkability,
Yeah.
foot
So-
traffic, and if it can tie into the rail to trails somehow with crossing over 27,
Yeah,
be a
that's the
major
issue.
plus to connecting the
If we
town
could do that,
finally.
yeah, I know, that would be great. So that's the idea.
Probably, what I envision our biggest obstacle to be in creating this ordinance is the density. The density balance in order to make the mixed-use development projects viable economically.
Right.
But not put such a large residential dwelling unit burden within the town.
Right.
So that, I think that's going to be the hardest thing to flesh out. So it's,
And that's where we can kind of, like Mr. Scranton has met with us previously talking about this kind of thing, and
Right.
he could actually lend his thoughts on what's cost effective to do a project like that. Like how many residential units compared to commercial would I have to
Right,
make
I
this a viable project?
absolutely, I think there's a reality of projects that they need a certain amount of residential unit capacity to thrive. And this is when we need to really evaluate this and, you know, and understand that before we go forward with.
And it
that
ultimately
type
is
of
for
zoning.
another tool for a developer to come in and say, I want to take this land, I want to do this with it, and I have the ability not to do residential or commercial, I can do this mixed thing.
Yes, sir.
And make it profitable for him and make it viable for the town.
Right.
She's a good meeting, so I've had Rockenberg Mayor. Once again, I had heard that you were reaching out to the development community to let you know how many homes they need for their return on investment. I would offer caution in that regard. Okay.
Well, mixed use doesn't mean 100%.
Because I'm sure they're all willing to give you their advice, and I would just approach that with
It's in
skepticism.
Suffolk County this way.
So maybe an arm's length evaluation would be
It's an
better one.
economic perspective to understand. And of course, the town is actually controlling that ordinance, so.
As long as it's not your sole source of information. That's-
Right.
Yep.
For the record,
Shepherd,
Pat,
Ideas and thoughts. That's
for the record, my response to that suggestion was to have us first meet and formulate our own position and
Yep.
the whole thing, and then we can get input, but we start with, yeah,
Sorry, guys, we work for the people.
yeah.
Well,
And I
just-
think that we should have people, if we're having developers come in and meet, we should also invite some residents.
But this
into-
links back to what Heather's talking about, having, what kind of density do you want out of this development to make it viable? You know, we would love to see this to increase foot traffic and walkability, but what is that terms, if someone's gonna come in and do it, what's it gonna be, make it worth their while to
Well,
do?
and if we find out that number is just greater than we're really willing to accept for the vision of mixed development.
That's right.
We need to understand that
Got to benefit the community.
because
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
if it's a density greater than a certain percentage, this might not be the path for us. And that's the benefit of reaching out. You know, what are your expectations? If you're looking to develop a mixed use, you know, community or a mixed use, what are your expectations for development? Right.
Right,
Right.
and also, if we do end up with this, and it's viable for the town, here's what we're willing to accept in a mixed-use zone. Here it is. If you could do something with it, have at it. If not, I'm sorry. You know, it's ultimately what's acceptable to the town.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So the design of these new zoning districts would come first.
Yes.
Well, we have to at least set the parameters.
Yep.
Yes.
Like, right,
Yes.
Yep.
yeah, and then we can
And
get
the
that.
other, Leslie, I'll just add, the other thing that we'll be discussing when we meet to have our meeting, is the mechanism. Are we going to have this as a zoning classification? Is it going to be an overlay? Or is it going to be part of another zone perhaps that we're going to amend? So those are some of the challenges that we'll be exploring as the actual mechanism.
If, when you say an overlay, actually, Heather, it brings something to mind. If we, say a few months from now, we come up with the new zoning classifications, categories, I think that would be by ordinance, right? Council would
That's
pass it.
Right.
Absolutely.
How could that, by then, we can assume the master plan's already passed. But, so now that we have these two new zoning categories on the books, master plan's already been passed, is there a way, or should we seek a way, to be able to apply those zoning categories to existing properties? In other words, because, I mean, normally you can't just change the zoning. You have to go through a
Right.
process.
We've provided for that.
Okay, good.
For the properties that we feel would be beneficial to for the MXD, such as the Beck property. We provided for that verbiage in the master plan, noting that it's, you know, it's a candidate for it.
Great.
So that,
Okay, excellent, thank you.
When you talk about an overlay, just exactly what is that for those of us in the audience who are
an overlay is almost, it's a zone or a district where you would, we create the zone, it's to function as an overlay, and you basically designate an area or areas where you feel that mixed-use development would be compatible. So regardless of what it could go both ways. but,
Zoning classification.
right, there's, some of it's, I'm trying not to, because there,
Define a use.
right, you can define an area or that it's an overlay for an existing district, like.
Can I give you an example?
Uh-huh,
Right now, the rail yard,
mm-hmm,
just as an example, rail yard's downtown zone,
right,
specific
It already
usage.
functions
right,
as,
already
right.
functions as, but if someone were to come into the rail yard and want to do MXD, you can overlay MXD on top of downtown.
right, so we could take the downtown zone or the area and put it as like an overlay that,
Which would be the economic, perhaps, economic incentive to move forward with
right,
revitalizing.
But we also taken out a piece of property that might be zoned residential and say we can overlay this on
That's
top
what
of that
makes me
if the
nervous.
property is acceptable. Well, that's what we have to
and,
consider.
and in that you can achieve the overlay and you can, exempt zoning districts. That is one thing,
And that's where it gets that slippery slope of an overlay.
yes.
And also, if you overlay on a downtown zone as an example, all the properties in the downtown zone are applicable. It's not just one.
You can't overlay against a specific, or that spot zone,
No.
right? You can't overlay against.
It has to be for the whole category.
And all, yeah, I think it's a little bit unclear.
Yeah, and
I
that's
mean-
why we need to research it further. If there's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
specific area,
Yeah, because, I mean, would the zoning be, all right, let's say Beck, and Mr. Beck, Mr. Beck who was here, was actually agreeable to consider
Yeah,
mixed
he's
use.
R7 right now on that
Yeah.
property.
right. if
But,
we
but,
wouldn't
but,
want
so
to
let's
be-
say, would it be like, okay, we're gonna propose that this property be mixed use and something else? It's not like a binary zone, it's just like,
That's more bubble zoning, like a,
Overlay zones provide increased flexibility in local zoning.
good thing, clarity, we've got clarity now. Or so would it be mixed use overlay on R7, I mean,
Yes.
which is different
If
than just
R7
changing.
goes away in the mixed use,
So really, we're just changing the zoning,
it's
yeah.
another way to do that.
yeah, it's almost like.
yeah,
I think this is
Can't do it
subject.
We've never
Spots
done
right.
overlays.
You cannot pick
Okay.
projects.
I'm
Yeah.
not,
Well, we'll talk about it at our meeting, yeah. But-
Put another way, the overlay zone includes a set of regulations that is applied to the property within the overlay zone in addition to the requirements of the underlying or base zoning district.
So you
In
actually
addition.
so you can define like an actual area. So if, and this just,
The
this
overlay
isn't what we're
typically
suggesting. Like
provides
if you
protection.
wanted the corridor, the 27 corridor to have, whether it be a shopping center for redevelopment, then we could say, okay, mixed use. But then everything, you have to think of the density, and that's why you have to think of your residential capacity. If you're encouraging mixed use all the way down a certain corridor, you're basically encouraging a lot of residential. So overlay, we've never used
A
it.
lot of work.
I'm not saying that we shouldn't. I like
Good discussion.
Yep, all right.
Good discussion.
splitting and
Okay.
zoning.
Take a breath.
Let's,
No, it's a good discussion.
let's do an update on Highway 27 corridor study. At last month's meeting, when we were discussing some of the site plan submissions we had, Heather made the point that she and Barney had already given some consideration to the fact that because the traffic impact of that intersection at Park Avenue, Twin Arch, and 27 was such, we're already, at the point of failure in terms of that intersection, without anything else, without any additional flow-through traffic, without any additional growth, without any further consideration. And as a result, one of the possible management tools that can be considered by a municipality in a case like that is an enterprise fund,
An expansion fund, yes.
an expansion fund, which basically says that any property owners and developers, moving forward to change anything or increase the impact should share in some equitable way, That's a tool for management. The entire 27 corridor is so significant in terms of its development over time that it actually, we're probably 10 years behind in doing this. But to look at what are the implications of just the development of what is there, much less the various options and scenarios. So,
Just on the 27 Twin Arch intersection, just as a general observation, as that road is, they've expanded that intersection, pushed the problem up to Watersville Road now. But with all the additional traffic and as it builds, I see a ton of accidents at that intersection. You know, is it feasible to approach the state and say, can you slow down 27 going through Mount Airy?
That,
Is that a reasonable request to the state?
we,
Like to take it from 50 to 40 or like, I mean, 27 is 30 miles an hour to Damascus.
it's,
not gonna happen.
it's a request, but that's not their behavior pattern.
Well, I know, I'm just saying, you know, the state needs a solution to solve like the accidents that occur there all the time, because it's people trying to get across and you have multi-lane and you have a bunch of less than proficient drivers.
There are not as many accidents there as you think there would be. There hasn't been a lot of them there. There are accidents there, yes, but
In the past 4 months, I think I've seen 3, like, turns.
Yeah, it's the turning movements, and it's
It's
the
the
right
tu- it's
turns.
It's the turn.
It's the right turns, the
We
right,
should make no right turns
Yeah,
at
it's the
all
right
at any of that intersection. The other really huge thing that happens is northbound lanes on 27 past the intersection.
That's the problem.
Have to come down to one lane, and it's like speed race,
Yeah.
trying to get ahead of
That's
each
where the
other.
problem is.
I mean,
well,
these
we're
are-
not accustomed to merging.
it's that plus the right turns.
We're not
Okay.
good with that.
And the other thing is, that this highway needs
Yep.
inventory, if they drag that out to Watersville Road, you're gonna start having accidents up there for the same reason.
Right.
Yeah.
But they should absolutely cut out right turns of all aspects of it, because people don't understand the impact of these tractor trailers turning, coming down southbound on 27, when you're turning right from Park Avenue on it, and they get whacked. I mean, these are high-speed collisions.
Yeah.
But the right turn thing,
Good point. Point well taken.
Oh,
Heather, frame for us where you're going with the Highway 27 corridor RFP.
Is the objectives, I wish I would have brought it with me, because generally, we have a scope of work that is going to analyze current conditions, and based on Jennifer's comments, include traffic models for what-if scenarios and future, accounting for all future development. And not just in town, but regionally. So at the end of the corridor study, we should understand what the deficiencies are now on 27, what the initial mitigations, not initial, but the immediate mitigations that need to occur, but also understand what is going to happen in the future with, all the cumulative growth pressures from regional and, as we develop along 27. And the extent, and what I think is important to understand to what extent it can be improved.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to understand what impact Mount Airy has versus the outlying area. Is the regional growth going to be so great that what we do in town isn't going to make that much of a difference in terms of the impact on the rest?
Well, there are 3 points of measurement now on 27 that the State Highway Administration does. They measure traffic volume between 70 and Twin Arch Road, Park Avenue. A second measuring point is between there and North Main, where it comes in, and there's a third above that. And they've been measuring it for the most part since the early 2000s, because we've gone back and we've pulled those numbers. And we also know that the traffic on 70 is roughly 2.5 times what it is on 27 at its heaviest point. Can you ask the Highway Administration to give us projection, their best projection of what they think the capacity going forward, over time, what that growth is going to be?
They're going to use, most likely they'll use a growth rate. They'll take a number, a percent growth and apply it to the current traffic counts. So
Okay.
they'll have like an annual growth rate and they'll apply it, and you'll have to give them a year. Like, I want to see it out for the next 10 years, or I want to see it out for the next 20 years, something like that.
That's one thing we need to talk about. I was thinking like 25 to 30 years.
Okay, whatever it is that we decide, they'll most likely, they'll do that, they'll do that, and then they'll also, I don't know whether the State Highway Administration would do this, or the consultant, or whoever it is, will also then add to that approved or projects that we think are going to be approved in the near future, and they'll add that number to it, and they'll run the models.
Okay. And that's part of what, I would hope to get from dialogue with Carroll County Planning, is to have some sense of what, those trends are. We can see that.
And
and
Jennifer
know
also
that.
mentioned to him, even though our 27 corridor is only located in Carroll County, but bringing in Frederick County
I was
as
gonna
well.
say all the development.
And, that's something, that was a question, but,
I mean, we've only thought in terms of 27 up to this point, with the amount of development that's going on to the west of us. Prospect and 144 and all of those, yeah.
When Carson LaShire develops it, you're gonna really just pancake
Sure.
this in.
Well,
Since the last meeting, which I guess was on July when they raised these issues, in the evenings, I've interviewed probably 600 or 700 residents at the townhouses behind where Tony lives. What's the name of that mountain again?
Twin Arch Crossings.
Twin Arch Crossing. I've
Dave, you
talked
want to
about-
come up to the podium so
All right.
so you can be on camera and we can pick up your voice better?
Yeah, Dave Pyatt, 705 Park Avenue. I've lost about 10 pounds in the last 2 weeks. That's the good news. I probably have interviewed or talked to, I'm just guessing, 600 or 700 residents. I started at Conestoga. They're the most complicated because they have traffic concerns, but everything depends on everything else. And they don't want some of those road connections made. So that's one complexity.
We know that.
When I talk to the Twin Arch Crossing residents, they are very concerned because they have only one way in and out, basically. And I've heard many stories of taking an hour, depending on the situation. But, there's just a broad concern about being isolated over there. And they don't quite know how to articulate that thought. But when I talk to them, they after, it took about 5 minutes to get their confidence. I don't know if I have an honest face or a dishonest one, I'm not sure.
You mean
But
Twin
then
Arch Road being the only way out?
Yeah, they really, that's a very hot button item over there. I also talked to the senior center and Carroll, all along Carroll Avenue where I live in Park Avenue. And their concern is just traffic in general. Just a broad thing with traffic. Then I wandered up to Nottingham, and I didn't know what kind of a reaction I would get. But their concern is just congestion on 27. I heard stories of people that come home at 4:30 and it takes them half an hour to get through that last intersection. And I used to commute, and thank God I got to the point where I could retire. But I remember coming up 27, and I hear all these stories of Clarksburg Village. And you get all the way to Mount Airy, and then you get stuck again, and that just seems to be an extra source of frustration. So there's just an awful lot of angst about traffic, but in particular, the intersection of Twin Arch and Park seems to be the worst. At Watersville, there's still a lot of concern about not being able to make a left-hand turn. And the one at Conestoga is kind of a that's like a Rubik's Cube type of thing, you know, what's the fix? The problem is if you go to, you know, on Twin Arch, if you look at it, I mean, you have to come up with another, I mean, there were some plans in the draft master plan that showed other, you know,
Century, the extension.
other
of
entrance.
Century Drive.
But I spent my entire time on the town council, which is 24 years, waiting for Center Street to open. I mean, that's not a joke, that's
No,
a fact.
It's a
You
reality.
know, that's a reality. So I think you have to show some, you know, it's one thing to do a traffic study. I was the one that got the town to buy the trip counter. That was one of my little, you know, mini contributions. But you have, I think that the traffic people have to talk to the residents and get this feedback to see what their concerns are. And, okay, if this has to be done, I mean, how are you gonna do it? How do you get another access? And that other access may block something else. And those are the kind of things I think that people are really fussing about right now.
That's really valuable input and feedback that you're bringing to us. Actually, part of the RFP does include community sessions where our consultants will be meeting with residents and developers, you know, residents to understand their concerns and perhaps, you know, their vision or suggestion or what, you know, what they think would be helpful. And, you know, on a developer point of view, you know, what are their, I should say property owners of commercial property, not necessarily developers.
And you know, everybody needs a job. I mean that's a
Except
fact.
you.
Yeah.
But I think the other key thing in the RFP is that we want to formulate a future network. We want to understand the thresholds that, you know, certain development can't go forward or they're going to be a trigger for the development or extension of another road. So when we get to the end of this corridor study, we also want to have a future plan for road networks and the impact or the relief that they will cause, not cause, but they will provide. This plan is really meant to be proactive in the future. Right now, it's going to be a little bit reactive because nothing, you know, we don't have anything like this, so we're a little bit behind the 8 ball. But we want to be very proactive for future development.
I mean, it's really, it's almost like a separate master plan just for the other
Absolutely,
side
but
of 27.
not a master plan. We don't want it to be a guiding
Right,
document. We want it to be a policy document. At least that's how I envision it.
Well, I think the residents want some specifics. I mean, if you know, that's my interpretation. They want to know, okay, for example, if it's at capacity now, which I believe it is, I mean, I would just say hold things up until you can come up with some answers. But
Right.
that's,
All right, good.
you know, we sort of went down that road. But I'm just saying, these are I
So
think.
that's great feedback. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Excellent feedback. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Dave.
Just a question.
Quick comment?
Yeah, I thought that, I seem to recall, at least the suggestion last time was before we drop the RFP out for the corridor study, we were going to put it out in public so folks can comment?
Absolutely. We are still within our
Okay.
committee.
Cool.
I sent it out a week ago just
Good.
with our advisory committee. I'm getting their comments. And once we get it to the point where we feel that it's ready to, it reflects the project scope that we're envisioning, then we're going to release it for public
Excellent.
input as well as the planning commission.
Right, because part of the discussion last time was just the
Absolutely.
way you ask the questions, what questions you ask, what questions you leave out, that certainly impacts how, so
Right,
that's still on track.
We want it to be objective,
All right.
absolutely.
Great, thank you.
So-
Good. Okay. One last thing before we move on to new business. We're just about at the point in terms of presentation of the master plan to town council. So we wanted to share some thoughts on that. Heather? Councilman, do you want to,
Yeah,
thoughts in that regard?
as we get ready to put the master plan before the council, I've never voted on a master plan. I know Councilman Ken hasn't voted on a master plan. Dave, Dave, have you voted on a master plan before? You must have.
The famous 2003-4 master plan.
Well, so the suggestion sort of I had was, at least, was, since the council, I know the current council's never voted on a master plan, so the suggestion I sort of had for y'all's consideration was for planning, for the chair and staff to break the plan up into consumable bites. Because the council's either going to vote up or down on the plan as a whole. So my thought is, and again,
They can modify it.
right, we can modify it.
Which is really what happened. Now, last time there was more of a schism between the planning commission and the council. And what came out of the council decision
Was different.
almost a separate master plan. And each item was revisited.
Okay. I don't get the sense that's what,
Something Carol can.
yeah,
What was that word, a skizzy? Was that what-
schism.
Okay.
I don't get the sense that'll happen this time, but my suggestion for the chair and for staff is for the chair and the staff, break the plan up into small consumable bites. And then it doesn't have to be by chapter, it could. Here's chapter 1. Have the chair and vice chair just present to the council, again, after all the public hearings, their overview of the rationale, and then as liaison on council, I would lead the council through a consensus on that. Okay, so we got consensus on this first chunk. Okay, let's move to the second chunk. So we do consensus on each chunk, and then at the end, we've got the whole consensus on whatever changes, and then we vote up or down with the modifications. So just a suggestion, because I don't really know how, given the size of the plan, if you just throw it onto the table for the council,
That's the
pure
concern.
chaos.
That's the concern.
So-
The only, it's been a while since I've looked at it again. The only thought that I have is, can it be broken down in sections that are able to be voted on separately without looking at it as a whole?
The plan has to be voted up or down.
She means the
My
chunks.
guidance to.
Well,
town
what I'm saying is
council
that the chunks, what I'm saying is consensus. In other words, if the council reaches consensus on a section,
Okay,
really,
you're not
each
talking
council,
about
each
approving
council
the
member
section.
each council member saying, yeah, I have no problem with this, let's move on.
And it could be things that are relevant could go together, like things.
Right,
Three
no,
or
that makes
four,
sense. I thought you were
yeah.
seeking approval for each section, voting on it separately.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah, just.
Got it. Got it.
They will have read the entire plan, so they will
Great detail.
understand
The whole big picture?
the entire picture, and then they will vote up and down on the specific components.
That's why we release it to them a chapter at a time.
No, they will get an entire beautiful book with maps, and they, when we have these exercises, they will have read every
and memorize.
And Chris, not that I want to inflate your ego, because I know you don't have a big ego, but you are as the liaison now, given your history on planning and your familiarity with 66B, you are going to be uniquely qualified to help steer the council through.
No,
Yeah.
actually, I will not steer the council.
No, all right, bad words.
It will be
Not
the- it
steer,
will
but
be the-
as Chairman Butts and Lydia, if they are going up, whoever's going to explain, this is how we come to it, you can certainly lend your voice
No.
about that.
Councilman Everidge will guide for the sections, and
This
the chair and
consensus.
vice chair will provide rationale.
Correct.
I was
No,
going to suggest the subcommittee approach.
No!
Well, no, I mean,
No,
I mean,
but
it's
seriously,
the,
as we talk about planning issues, if the council's like, well, how do you come to this, and what does this mean for the town? You can certainly lend your voice on that, because you're, just on your experience on planning is what I'm trying to
correct,
say.
but what I would prefer, again, is when the master plan comes to council, it's the work of this committee.
Oh, clearly.
So, what I'm saying is, it would be the chair and the vice chair to answer those questions behind rationale, not myself.
But as liaison, you would have to help.
Well, if need be,
How
we'll
about
bring them
that?
back, but
As liaison, he's going to keep it on track.
we'll see.
All right, we got
I
it.
defer to the chair.
I'm confident we can do it.
We got it.
And I'm going on vacation.
Again?
Okay, any new business? Anybody have any new business? Heather, you have anything?
You know what, I have talked enough this evening,
No?
I think everybody's pretty much full.
Any new business in the audience? Okay.
The pretzel place is open. I just-
What pretzel place?
That's right.
What pretzel place?
It's down on Main Street.
All right, zoning administrator report. So we've got our next planning commission meeting August 25th,
We do.
and it sounded like each of the subcommittees plus the Carter study would probably be able to make some headway.
Right,
You know.
we do have goals and deadlines, and we're gonna work towards meeting those.
Yep.
Not too much on residential activity for the zoning administrator report. Decks are a theme. Everybody wants to
Summer.
be
Oh, that's right.
outside
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
summer.
and Enjoy.
Okay. Anybody have anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll
Is there a
second.
Motion has been made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Thanks,
Thank
folks.
you.
Productive session.